All right, this is chapter 11, and there's only one more chapter, and the story is over. It's just a short story, so. Chapter 11. Ezra had just arrived home from work when the phone rang. He sighed and picked up the receiver. "Hello," he asked, having a seat in his armchair. "Hi, Ezra, it's Maria. I just wanted to check and see if you still needed a ride to the conference. I got a ticket for Mike. We are both excited to hear you speak. He felt so bad not being there last time." Ezra sat up, almost swearing aloud. He tried to recall what he had been thinking when he had signed up as a speaker for a conference he would certainly not be able to attend. Is that why he had said yes? Or had he simply forgotten his timeline? Human memory was fallible. 3 months ago, he must have believed he had something useful to say about trauma. Now he was less certain he understood the word at all. He debated giving an honest answer, and his diaphragm contracted with silent laughter. He answered warmly, "Yes, if you don't mind, that would be very helpful." "Of course, we will be there at 5 p.m., she said cheerfully. The call ending felt so abrupt. Had they said goodbye? Had they talked at all? Ezra tapped his fingers on the receiver. His time was almost over. And what had he learned? Had it been worth the cost? He had asked himself these kinds of questions many times before, but always with an audience in mind. Right now, he was asking for himself. His team might not value the data he brought to them, but he had to distance himself from their expectations. He needed to present his experience as valuable, and to do this, he needed to figure out what he valued in any of it. He put on some quiet music and went to the kitchen to make tea. Across from him he could see a shape, much like Oliver had described, a shadow with bright eyes that stared at him with a cold intensity. He sighed. Of course, he had been right. It was just a watcher, nothing more. "Good evening to you," he said, turning on his tea kettle and taking a cup down from the cupboard. The shadow said nothing, but he felt tingles run up his spine. The being moved closer, and Ezra held his ground. He could feel static run up and down his spine. The feeling wasn't altogether unpleasant. With slow movements, Ezra prepared the tea. He positioned his hand above the cup to feel the steam rise up to meet his skin. "Would you like some?" he asked. "To be clear, I am offering. You may borrow this body for a moment and try the tea. I would not mind." He felt a gentle prodding around his head. The shadow didn't move or speak. Ezra lifted the cup by the handle, one hand hovering underneath for support if needed. "I'm going to take a seat in the other room, and once I am comfortable, you are welcome to take over this body, only for the tea. And it will take a few minutes to cool down to a safe temperature for drinking, so do keep that in mind." He went into the living room and had a seat, placing the tea on the table beside his chair. 2 minutes passed, and he waited. He could feel the timing, and just when he had anticipated it happening, his head felt suddenly cold. It was as if ice water was being poured into his head from the top and traveling down his spine, filling his belly. The feeling passed as he entered his quiet room in his mind, where thought became soft enough to sit beside without touching. He was only slightly alarmed as he felt his body be moved. From the quiet room, Ezra watched his hands reach for the tea. Engel brought the cup carefully toward his mouth. As Ezra had done earlier, they held it near his face for a moment, feeling the steam rise against borrowed skin. Bergamot, citrus, heat. What had their first experience with tea been like? It had been too long. He had forgotten. The being had taken a tentative sip, filling his mouth with the warm, sweet liquid. They held it in his mouth for several minutes, a very long time. He could feel his shoulders drop. He could feel his whole body soften. Then the unexpected happened. The tea was placed aside and his hands were on his stomach. Warmth spread across his torso and down his legs. Were they healing his body? For a moment, Ezra doubted his confidence in assessing this being as a watcher. His attention was quickly drawn to the realization of how much pain his body had been in. Everything hurt. Now that his legs felt better, his hands ached loudly. It was impossible to ignore. The warmth spread down his arms to his hands, and the ache faded away. Cold heat poured out of the top of his head, and then the shadow was in front of him. They didn't say a word, but he felt a shushing sound move from their shape to brush the sides of his head. It was an expression of gratitude and affection. He nodded, and their eyes seemed to blink. He blinked, and then he was alone in his home. He wiggled his fingers and reached for his teacup. It was empty. Lost time and lost tea. That was to be expected.